Hey, you guys, thanks for listening into this episode of Tis with T. On today, I have Mr. Nelson with us. Hey, Mr. Nelson, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. So, thank you so much for being on the show today. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I am the founder and CEO of I Got Smarter, which is a goal achievement program that is associated with an app. And I am the author of The Unlucky Sperm Club. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices.
Awesome. Awesome. So, tell us a little bit about how your experiences help you with your entrepreneur journey.
Yeah, I've got quite the original origin story. My mom got pregnant with me when she was 15 years old.
Mhm.
While she was pregnant with me, her father drove into the town square. There, he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and wounding another. Eventually, he was captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty. And during his trial, my mom got up and testified to the jury that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that the police officer had raped her. And she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And my mom's testimony worked. The first trial ended in a hung jury. Eventually, my grandfather's was convicted to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he spent the rest of his life, more than 40 years behind bars, leaving behind, me, my mom. My mom's one of 15 children in this small town to deal with all the circumstances that surrounded what he had done.
Mm. So, tell us more about your book and why did you write the book? What was your purpose?
Yeah, so I lived a pretty challenging childhood, had a lot of trials that I needed to overcome. My mom eventually married a man who became my stepfather. He was an alcoholic, very physically and emotionally abusive to both me and my mom. So dealing with that, and because of all those situations that I'm dealing with, my mom and stepdad had four children in quick succession, and because of their lifestyle, I was kind of left to take care of my siblings. Because of that, I was, not attending school regularly. And in the fourth grade, I remember looking down at my report card. I had straight F's, and I had failed the fourth grade. The next year, they placed me into special ed. I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't spell. Come to find out, I had dyslexia. So dealing with that, and then eventually, one day my stepfather's walking home drunk from a bar, and somebody else is driving home drunk from that bar, and they end up hitting and killing him. And that's the time that my mom pretty much was left with no hope. She had five small children. She's dropped out of school in the eighth grade. She's never worked outside of the home. And it was at that time that she decided she was going to take her own life, and she attempted suicide. Unfortunately, she wasn't successful, but when she did get out of the hospital, she determined that she wasn't going to be able to care for all five kids. And then that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And that's when my life kind of took a turn.
Mhm.
And long story short, I determined to be the first person in my family to graduate from college. Of my mom's 15 brothers and sisters, only two had graduated from high school. None had even attended a college. And, 12 years after setting that goal, four different universities, 4 years in the Air Force, I finally became the first person in my family to graduate from college. And that's when I fell in love with goals and personal development and realized the power of them. And then over the last 20 years, I've become the top salesman worldwide for a top five commercial real estate firm. I've started more than 10 businesses, including one of the largest privately held pet resorts in the country. And I've been able to exit those businesses now. And I was left with, what was I going to do with the rest of my life? And kind of looked at the life I had lived and determined that, the reason that I had lived this life was so that I could help others who are caught in tough circumstances realize that they're not victims of their circumstances, they're product of their choices, and use my story to inspire and motivate them. And then I developed the I Got Smarter goal achievement program and app to help people stick to their goals. And then I wrote the book to kind of tell my story so that people would understand that this isn't just theory. This is something that I've lived for the last 25 years.
Mhm. So, with all that being said, how can people overcome, their generational curses and not be a product of their environment?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had that in my life. With college and with spousal abuse and alcoholism, it runs rampant throughout my family. The biggest thing that I saw was, some guy had an old matchbook, and they took one match and they put it down, and they lit the match, and because that one match was not there, it didn't light the entire pack. And that was a great illustration, because you can be that person. And what it is it's about making a choice. And as soon as you make that choice that you're going to stop that cycle, you're in charge of your own life. And one of our philosophies that I Got Smarter is take 100% responsibility for your own success. You can't blame it on anybody else. You can't blame it on the economy. You can't blame it on your country. Take 100% control of it, and then start making the choices that you need to make in order to fulfill your goals and your dreams. And that's the great thing with goals, is goals are generational. I mean, my life, I have 3 sons, and they're living drastically different lives than I lived. And that's all because of that first goal that I set out to become that first person in my family to graduate from college. But they're going to live drastically different lives because of what I did. And hopefully their kids will live drastically different lives. So, you know what? Start, if you want change, start with that person staring back at you in the mirror, and understand all the potential that lies within you, not only, for change, but all that potential that, becoming that best version of yourself.
Mhm. So, like, what advice would you give someone that has suffered a lot of trauma in their life and or that's probably kind of still dealing with a lot of trauma? What advice would you
Yeah.
give?
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, all the circumstances that surrounded my birth and what my mom testified to, what my grandfather did, I gave that a negative thing in my life. It weakened me. I never wanted to talk about it, because every time I did, I had to deal with that. But the one philosophy that really changed that was, um, is things only have the meaning that you're willing to give them. So for 25 years, when I moved away from that small town, I didn't never wanted to live there again because of everything that it represented. I didn't tell anybody that story about my grandfather and my mom, because I didn't want to have to deal with it. I was running from it. But then when I determined that I was going to try to help other people not be victims of their circumstances, then I started to realize that I lived that life for a reason. And then I started to tell that story and realize now it gives me power. Now it gives me energy because of what I'm doing with it. It's the same exact story. The same things happened to me. The only thing that changed is that I gave those events a different meaning. I gave them a positive meaning. And that's one of the things that all of us can do. We get to give meaning to everything that happens to us in our lives. And if we get to give meaning, why on earth would we ever give anything a negative meaning? So dig. I know it can be hard in some situations, but if you dig hard enough and long enough, you're going to find, that silver lining, that positive thing that you can take out of any experience that happens to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Nelson, for coming on the show today and sharing with us your journey and how you overcome these obstacles and what we can do to overcome our obstacles and trauma in life. So, what I'm going to do is share your social media handles, tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you, and tell us how we can get your book.
Great. You want,
Go ahead. You can go ahead and tell us how we can get in contact with
oh,
you.
okay. Yeah. So, I mean, the probably the easiest way to get in touch with me is at nelsontressler.com. And you can find a link there for the I Got Smarter Goal Achievement Program and app. The app is also available on both Android and Apple at the App Store. And my book is available everywhere books are sold, but Amazon is probably the easiest spot to get it.
Awesome. And if you guys want to get in contact with me, you can do so. My number is 910-317-0396. You can shoot me an email at contact@mjfinancial.biz. If you want to schedule a consultation, you can do so by visiting the website, www.mjfinancial.biz. You can find this episode on Anchor, you guys, and you can find this episode on the YouTube channel. And if you would like to be a guest on the show or know anyone that wants to be a guest on the show, feel free to contact me at contact@mjfinancial.biz. So thank you once again, Mr. Nelson, for being on the show. I highly appreciate you today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, you guys, and we will see you on the next episode of Tips with T.